Stand in front of a stair, a low step, or a sturdy box. Lift one foot onto it. Now push yourself all the way up using only that leg. No hands on a rail. No shove off the ground with your other foot. If that felt wobbly, or you could not do it cleanly on both sides, here is what that is actually telling you. It is probably not that your legs, overall, have gotten weak. Most people over 50 who fail that test can still walk 4 miles, still carry groceries, still get through a completely normal day without a problem. What is actually gone missing is one specific category of muscle fiber. A fast, powerful type most people have never even heard the name of. And it has been quietly shrinking since you were still in your 20s. Do you grip the stairway more on the way down than the way up? Do you brace yourself a half second longer than you used to before standing up out of a low couch? Do you catch yourself stumbling off a curb you would have walked over without thinking 10 years ago? I went down a rabbit hole on the exercise physiology behind this because none of the usual advice, walk more, stretch more, take the stairs when you can, actually fixes it. And the fix that does work is not complicated. It is one specific, almost boring-looking exercise, done a very particular way that most people get wrong. Here is what is actually happening inside your legs, and it starts with two completely different kinds of muscle fiber living in the same muscle. The fiber type that is quietly disappearing is called the type 2 or fast twitch fiber. Your quadriceps contain both slow twitch type 1 muscle fibers, built for endurance, and fast twitch type 2 muscle fibers, designed for explosive bursts of force, like catching yourself when you trip, standing up quickly, or climbing a flight of stairs. Walking, even a lot of it, rarely demands enough force to recruit these fast twitch fibers. That is because of what is known as Henneman's size principle. Your nervous system activates small, fatigue-resistant muscle fibers first and only recruits the larger, more powerful type 2 fibers when the force demand becomes high enough. And flat ground, that threshold is rarely reached, which means you can walk 10,000 steps a day for years and still gradually lose the very fibers that help you recover from a stumble or climb stairs with confidence. But here is the surprising part. Even many popular leg exercises people over 50 rely on do not fully train the ability that matters most when you suddenly lose your balance. The exercise that targets it best is not the one most people expect. First, though, it is worth understanding what aging is actually doing inside your muscles. Research by Lars Larson found that aging does not shrink all muscle equally. As we age, slow twitch type 1 fibers stay relatively intact, but fast twitch type 2 fibers become significantly smaller, reducing the muscle's ability to generate quick, powerful movements. Later work by Jan Lexel showed that aging can also eliminate entire motor units, with some surviving fast fibers gradually taking on the characteristics of slower ones. In other words, your body is not just losing the passing gear, it slowly starts replacing it. Think of it like a car with 2 gears. Walking keeps the cruising gear in great shape, but the passing gear, the one you need in an emergency, sits unused. If it stays idle for long enough, your body eventually stops maintaining it. So what kind of movement tells your body to keep that passing gear? This is where the single leg step-up stands out. It succeeds because it challenges your muscles in 3 ways that ordinary walking never does. First, it forces one leg to generate all the force by itself, which, by Henneman's size principle, is exactly the kind of high demand that recruits type 2 fibers. Second, it has a controlled lowering phase on the way back down, training the muscle to absorb force under load instead of just producing it. This is called eccentric loading, and it is specifically what your quadriceps and glute maximus need to control a stumble instead of letting it turn into a fall. Third, standing on one leg at the top force is your glute medius, on the side of your hip, to fire hard enough to keep your pelvis level, the exact muscle that, when it is weak, produces the visible hip drop limp doctors call a trundle and bird pattern. One movement. 3 separate systems, all getting exactly the stimulus that daily walking skips entirely. Research suggests these kinds of adaptations can happen surprisingly quickly. Within just a few weeks of progressive resistance training, people often notice that everyday movements, climbing stairs, standing up from a chair, or walking downhill, begin to feel more stable. The muscles are not just getting stronger. Your nervous system is becoming better at recruiting the fast-twitch fibers that everyday walking rarely challenges. Here is why the single leg step-up may offer unique advantages over walking and many common gym exercises when it comes to maintaining fast-twitch power, balance, and stair climbing ability as you age. First, it closes what exercise scientists call the bilateral deficit. When you squat on two legs, your stronger leg quietly picks up more of the load and your weaker leg coasts along behind it. Research comparing unilateral to bilateral training consistently shows this, and most people never notice it is happening to them. A step-up does not let either leg hide. Each leg has to do the work on its own, so the stronger side can no longer compensate for the weaker one. The strong leg cannot cover for the weak one anymore. Second, a lowering face trains the exact motion most falls happen in. Most stair-related falls in older adults happen on the way down, not the way up. Descending is a controlled, eccentric contraction where the muscle lengthens under load instead of shortening. Concentric strength, the kind you build pushing a leg press up, does not automatically transfer to eccentric control. Two people trip on the same crack in the sidewalk. One catches themselves in a quarter of a second, without even thinking about it. The other one goes down. Same misstep. Different biology underneath. Slow, controlled step-downs are what train at first outcome instead of the second. Third, it responds fast, at any age, once you actually load it hard enough. In 1990, a researcher named Maria Fiatarone put a group of frail nursing home residents, average age 90, through 8 weeks of high-intensity resistance training targeting their legs. Their strength gains averaged 174%. Their walking speed improved by 48%. These were people in their 90s, some of them using wheelchairs at the start. If type 2 fibers can respond theoretically at 90, they can absolutely respond at 52. Fourth, it trains balance as a side effect, not a separate workout. Standing on one leg also trains the stabilizing muscles around your hip and ankle, along with your balance system, because the movement demands all of them at once. Finally, it is the one exercise that actually looks like real life. Getting out of a car, stepping up onto a curb, climbing onto a train platform, almost nothing else in a typical workout, not a leg press, not a leg extension machine, not even a barbell squat, asks a single leg to lift your entire body weight by itself, the exact way real stairs and curbs do. Now, most people who try this get less out of it than they should, because of a handful of avoidable mistakes. Mistake number 1. Using a step that is too low. If a 6-inch step does not challenge you at all, your nervous system never has a reason to call up those type 2 fibers in the first place. You need enough height that the last couple of reps genuinely feel hard. Mistake number 2. Pushing off the bottom leg. If your back foot is bouncing or shoving off the ground to help you up, the working leg is not doing the job alone anymore, and you have quietly turned a unilateral exercise back into a bilateral one. Mistake number 3. Leaning too far forward. Hanging hard at the hips shifts the work into your hip flexors, lower back instead of your quadriceps and glutes, which is where you actually want it. Mistake number 4, and the big one. Rushing the way down. If you drop straight into the descent and let gravity do the work, you skip the entire eccentric, fall prevention half of the exercise, the part that matters most. Mistake number 5. Doing too many reps at too little effort. 20 easy reps per leg feels productive, but by the size principle we already talked about, easy reps only ever recruit the slow, endurance-oriented fibers you already have plenty of. The last 2 or 3 reps of every set need to feel genuinely difficult, or the fast fibers never get invited to the party at all. Here is how to progress it safely. Start with body weight and light support for balance on a step around ankle to mid-shin height. Once you can complete 3 sets of 12 with good control, remove the support, increase the step height, add light dumbbells, and finally slow each descent to 3 or 4 seconds. A few safety notes. Use an actual stair, a solid box, or a weight bench. Never anything that wobbles, like a stool or a stack of books. Keep a wall or countertop within arm's reach for at least your first 2 weeks. If you have a recent joint replacement, a balance disorder, or a cardiovascular condition, Get clearance from your doctor before adding load or height. Spend a minute or two beforehand, just marching in place and circling your ankles. The joints doing the most work here are the ones people warm up the least. And there is a real difference between your muscles working hard and a sharp pain inside the joint itself. The first means the exercise is doing its job. The second means stop and reassess. Here is why this matters beyond your next flight of stairs. In 2012, a Brazilian researcher named Cole Guilherme tracked more than 2,000 adults between the ages of 51 and 80 using a simple test of getting up and down off the floor using only their legs, no hands. He followed them for an average of 6 years. But people who scored lowest on that test, meaning their legs and balance could not get them up without support, were roughly 5 times more likely to have died by the end of the study than the people who scored highest, even after accounting for age, sex, and body weight. That is not a small effect. That is one of the larger mortality differences tied to any single physical measure you will find in the research. And it is not really about the floor test itself. It is about what the floor test is measuring. Whether your legs still have real, usable power, not just enough strength to shuffle across a room. Think about how many ordinary moments in a day actually depend on that same kind of power. Getting up off the floor after playing with a grandchild. Recovering your balance when a dog on a leash yanks sideways. Standing back up quickly after you have dropped something. None of those moments give you a warning first. They ask your legs to produce a large amount of force, immediately, with no time to build up to it, which is precisely the demand a step-up trains and a slow walk never does. There is bone benefit hiding in here too. Bone tissue responds to mechanical load the same way muscle does, a relationship sometimes described as Wolff's Law. And single-leg loaded movement puts real compressive force through your hip and femur, exactly the kind of stimulus that helps maintain bone density as you age, on top of everything already happening in the muscle itself. So here is the whole thing, distilled into a routine you can start this week. Step 1. Pick a stable step around ankle to mid-shin height. Step 2. Do 3 sets of 8 to 12 controlled reps per leg. Step 3. Train this twice a week, not daily. The fibers need roughly 48 hours to recover and adapt. Step 4. Control every single descent. A full 3-second countdown, no exceptions. Step 5. Once it feels easy for 3 full sets, raise the height or add weight, not the rep count. Fast twitch fibers, rebuilt. Balance, trained as a side effect. Falls, measurably less likely. Bone density, supported. Independence, protected. All from one exercise, done right, twice a week. The goal is not bigger legs. It is keeping the freedom to climb stairs without fear, catch yourself when you stumble, get up off the floor with confidence, and stay independent for as long as possible. That is what this exercise is really training. If this changed how you think about the next 50 years of your legs, hit like and subscribe to Henneman Decoded for more of the science hiding behind ordinary movement, and tell me in the comments how many controlled reps you could do per leg when you tried it. Send this to a parent who still waves off the stair rail, or does not, and probably should start this instead. Your body does not stop adapting because you get older. It stops adapting when you stop giving it a reason to. Give it that reason, and it will keep surprising you.